Hey, this is Mike over Religion Stopia. I want a special shout out to Robbie Lowdown. Brother, thank you for your help. Thank you for not giving up on me when everybody else has. Since the beginning of July, after a freak lightning storm, after I started seeing these things again, which we're going to be talking about in the future, they took out my computer. I guess I weren't too happy about the fact I keep talking about these things. In this Montana megalith will be part of this video. I just noticed right here that there's a head popping out. What could be possibly making these things? To you, Robbie, and I hope someday I can make it up to you. As far as, I don't know how that would be. Maybe just keep on making videos. But if it wasn't for you, man, everyone would have gave up on me. So thank you for giving me a little bit of hope. It's been a bit of a struggle. And as far as health and everything else, but I'm hanging in there and still fighting a good fight. Thanks, bro.
You're going to try, go all the way. Otherwise, don't even start. If you're going to try, go all the way. This could mean losing girlfriends, wives, relatives, jobs, and maybe your mind.
This was the title. I'm going to share this one. It's a fairly long one, but it's unbelievable. I wouldn't wish this upon anybody. This is titled Mean MFers in the Woods. Steve, first of all, thank you for making all this happen after listening to all the others. It just happened. I found myself not afraid of the woods anymore. I just got done with my first successful overnight camping trip, even if I did sleep in a boat, but I still did it. And had a blast even though about 30 years ago, I was minding my own business in the woods and I became a member of the Club of No Return in the blink of an eye. Did you ever? Back then, I lived in Spokane, Washington, was fairly new to the area, and was helping a friend by going up to his family's cabin and doing some work on the property. He wanted me to build a well around a small natural spring he had along a trail on the mountain, leaving the cabin, and it would help the animals drink as well. It got very hot up there. The first weekend, I got all the materials hauled up there on a three-wheeler, and even camped out, and was up early and got the base finished. Since the well was about a quarter mile down the trail from the cabin, I spent most of the next weekend there and finished the well, even though the size of it doubled during the life of the job. There's a little bit of missing punctuation, you guys, alright, so you're gonna have to bear with me at times. My friend brought his girl, and another couple on the third weekend. I brought my girlfriend. The well had been filling all week and working like it was supposed to. When we got there, we both jumped on the three-wheelers, and she followed me up to the well site where we stayed and partied and had a really good time. The sun was almost coming up when finally fell asleep. It was light out when my girlfriend woke me up and said that someone was coming. So I sat up with my back to the well and listened, and it was. It's not someone coming down the trail, it was someone coming up the mountain, and they were coming up the side of the mountain fast, and the closer they got, the louder and faster they got. The more it sounded like someone was driving a tank, kicking up dust, snapping trees apart, filling the air with the smell of fresh pine smell. When it came into our line of sight, my girlfriend fainted, and I lost my lunch, and my dinner, and everything I drank the night before. This thing was coming in so fast that to keep itself from running into us or through us and the well, it had to lean back and dig its giant heels into the ground and started digging up ground, rocks, tree roots, and dirt. It threw its arms into the air for balance, and just for a split second, it looked funny. But it would be a long time before I thought anything was funny again. Because when it came to a stop 10 to 15 feet from us, it was clearly mad. As fuck. And it screamed at us so loud, my ears have been damaged since that day. It felt like it tore apart every nerve ending in my head. It went to a spot somewhere behind my eyes that I still feel to this day. I'm completely convinced that it could kill you just by screaming at you if it wanted to. I got a very good look at this thing. I was close enough to feel the exhale from its nostrils. They were every bit as big as 16-ounce tallboy can of beer. It was covered in jet black hair, except it's on its face, parts of its chest, and a bunch of little spots all over it from smashing through the woods, no doubt. It had veins the size of hot dogs running down its neck and arms, clearly visible in the air, under the hair. The chest and face and palms of his hands were grayish black. It was every bit of 10 feet tall. Its teeth were the size of playing cards. I shit you not. They're mostly yellowish white, in the middle but shrouded in black. Then it took one step to the side, and it was at the three-wheelers, where it swatted the closest one to it, sending it smashing against the trees on its way down the mountain. This thing reminded me of Eddie Munster, how his hair came to a point in the middle of his forehead. It was pure muscle. It looked like the Hulk. When I came out of the woods, my girlfriend fainted. I lost my lunch and dinner and everything I drank the night before. But she woke up and tried to shoot it with a small charge of mace that was on her keychain in her purse. And instead of hitting it, she shot me right in the face with it, and all of a sudden I could not see, but I could still feel the ground shake as it ran by us at full throttle and up the mountain until we could not hear it any longer. And the forest was quiet, but it was a very loud quiet. Somehow my girlfriend managed to get the pepper spray out of her purse and act against this monster. But if I was standing there aiming a 50 cal machine gun at this thing when it came running out of the woods, I still would not have shot it. And taking a picture of it was out of the question. No cell phone back then. My girlfriend shook me out of my trance, got me to get up, and helped me over to the three-wheeler. and she got it going with me on the back, and after taking off the wrong way, we got our bearings back and headed back down the trail to the cabin where our friends were no longer there. They had left us, no doubt, when the thing screamed, and honestly, I do not blame them. I'm pretty sure I would have done the same had I heard a scream like that come echoing through the mountains. My ears were still ringing. I still felt like something had ripped apart right behind my eyes. I felt very dizzy and my whole head was almost swollen, and my clothes were soiled and my eyes were still burnt like hell. It was also super quiet all day long. It sounded like every step we made inside the cabin was broadcasted live outside to the forest around us through a PA system. No matter how hard we tried, we could not bring ourselves to get on a three-wheeler and try to make it to the main road. But all I really knew was we were somewhere between Medellin Falls and North Point, Washington. And I didn't feel like guessing when it came to running for our lives, so we waited and were wondering whether or not our friends were coming back for us, and it didn't look like it. And just as the sun started to go down, the first rock hit the back wall of the cabin so hard that it knocked everything off the wall upstairs and downstairs and onto the floor. Before we even knew what was going on, the second rock, the size of a volleyball, came smashing through the wall this time, and it hit the front wall of the cabin, almost going all the way through both sides and breaking windows and knocked the front door wide open. Our only cover in the whole place being a kitchen cabinet the sink was in. So not only was he back, he brought a friend. We could tell by the force of the rocks hitting the wall that there were two of them. We could also hear them move around and talk gibberish to each other. We never actually saw him again, but there was no mistake that he was there. During the day, we were racking our brains trying to figure out what we did to piss this big ugly motherfucker off. Did it have something to do with the well? Were we too drunk and loud? Was our fire too big? We never felt uncomfortable at all the whole night. We did not have a clue. After all, the well was a place that, as we were sitting there almost getting killed, was filling up so animals could have a nice water supply to drink from. During hot days on the mountain, it finally came to me that this thing was on its way up the mountain that day on its own, and we just happened to be sleeping in its path. That, and just as soon as the rock started, they stopped. We stayed huddled in the corner the whole night until morning, with the front door wide open. At first light, my friend showed back up without his girlfriend, but he had 5 of his local friends with him, and according to him, they were all armed to the teeth. Yeah, right, I thought. I saw 2 deer rifles, 2 shotguns, and a .45. To them, that was armed to the teeth, in their book, but not mine. If they would have seen that monster before any time growing up there, none of them would have even showed up, and none of them claimed that they had, and I believed them. My friend said that that cabin had been in his family for generations, and he never heard a scream like the ones he heard that morning, or saw anything like we did, for that matter. When I got back to Spokane that night, I was afraid to live in that city again, and was making plans to leave back to Phoenix as soon as possible. We tried talking to each other about it in the next few weeks, but it was like we saw and heard different things. I could tell we were already growing apart in that short time we were back. I bought myself a 50 cal Desert Eagle to carry around until I could get out of town with, and bought my girlfriend a 9mm Glock. And 3 weeks after that, I got a call at work from detectives, and was almost ordered home because my girlfriend, the one who hardly felt fear like I did, who helped me out of the woods, who acted against that thing, who tried to protect me from a monster, shot herself while I was at work with the gun I had bought her. That sucks ass. Her family, friends, and everyone she tried to warn laughed in her face. But like I said, Steve, all of that has been lifted off my shoulders a little bit at a time with each encounter you shared with us, until one day, not too long ago, was just gone. And I know it's just a start, but like I said, I've already been camping in the wilderness overnight, and I have more plans to do so, including moving back to Spokane because I loved it up there. Thanks again, Steve. Feel free to use my name, because after that weekend, I never gave a shit what any fucking buddy ever thought of ever again. Thanks to all the encounters sent in. It helped a lot. Never would have gotten back out there without all the How to Hunt family. Thanks, Don Kwiatkowski. I hope I pronounced your name close enough, Don. And that is one hell of a shit-eating experience. And a shittier ending. I'm so sorry to hear about that ending for your girlfriend. You imagine not having any clue about this topic, none at all, and having that happen. And now picture yourself being that couple, seeing what they saw, having what happened happen, and then trying to tell your family that story right there without anybody knowing shit. That's 30 years ago about this topic. Maybe some did, but they probably scoffed at it and didn't want nothing to do with it, right? It's a shit eater. At least now it's safe to come forward with that stuff, right? Now it's safe. It's okay. And there's thousands of other people who have seen this, basically the same thing. Not as intense. It's not that common for people to have seen something that intense, but we have had similar, right? People have been that close to him in the past. What a sight. But anyway, Dan, I'm going to cut this short, and for you personally, maybe possibly in the future, once I get the cave set up, and I'll find a tech geek near me somewhere who wants to come and set it up so that it can all be operated smooth, and possibly maybe you and I will have a conversation about what happened, and we'll do it. We can either do it privately or live in front of everybody here at the house. We'll call this the house, all right?
The teaser dome of Montana.
I'm Julie Ryder, the discoverer of the Montana megaliths, and we're here at the Tyser Dolmen. The Tyser Dolmen is a freestanding rock that fits the classical description of a dolmen, which is 2 uprights and 1 tabletop on top. The beautiful thing about the Tyser Dolmen is it's set on a mountain with a base underneath it. And that is a polygonal set square separate blocks that form the base. In the back there's a buttress that holds it to the side of the mountain because the weight is on the back of the dolmen. Otherwise it may come tumbling down. According to Andrew Barker, this is an extremely unique design that they have not found other places in the world so far. Above the Tyser Dolmen is a sphinx. It is an acoustic chamber, much like the hypogeum in Malta. Sound chambers that go deep underground. So I'm here with Dr. Sam from Bosnia, who does experiments on dolmens and finds megalithic sites and tests them all over the world. So, Dr. Sam, what do you think about the Tyser Dolmen?
Well, I think that I am very grateful that you and your team guided us here. We are almost at the top of this hill, and then you can see those 2 uprights, 2 megaliths, and 1 on the top. And you're right, this is the classical case of dolmen. The simplest, though. 2 vertical, 1 horizontal. Sometimes you can find them 3 vertical, 1 horizontal, sometimes 5 vertical, 2 horizontal, and so on. And you find them all over the planet. From Sardinia to Vietnam, South Korea has most of them. They have almost half of all dolmens on the planet for some reason. They are in Africa, they are in Pakistan, they are in Bangladesh, India, different countries. Why would somebody do something like that? The sincere answer would be, we don't know. The same thing goes for the original builders, those who placed them, like this one over here. How do we know that it's been placed? So we have 2 pieces, 2 megaliths. They are megaliths because they fulfill properties of megaliths. They are over 1 ton, and I'll talk about it. And you see, when it breaks vertically here. It does not happen in nature. It breaks horizontally. Why? Because they are the product of the sedimentation. That's how they break. Since we can see the break here and there, it means that originally, when this stone, and this is gray granite, was formed, it was formed in horizontal layers. So somebody moved them for 90 degrees and then placed that big block on the top. No way that Mother Nature could roll this block from somewhere higher up and then it got placed over there. So it's been placed by intelligent hands. I've done some energy measurements, and these are the results. Temperature today is very pleasant, 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Here in Montana during the fall, we got blessed. Humidity very low, 20 degrees. Weather is sunny, visibility clear, so we can see everything around us. Negative ions are in the range from 50 to 900. They are beneficial if higher than 5,000. This is not the case here. And this is rarely the case anywhere in the world. The highest quantities in Bosnian pyramid tunnels, 20,000 to 100,000, sometimes even more. Then one time at the Great Zimbabwe, just before the thunderstorm started, we had also 100,000, and then Slovenia 5,000 near one lake and so on. Usually the mountains are 500 to 1,000. So here we have 50 to 900, positive 30 to 1400. So nothing specially there. Electromagnetic radiation, the one that is harmful to us, there is none, meaning it's pleasant to stay here. Life energy or orgone energy, which got measured by the instrument called experimental life energy meter, is showing also just the regular results. It's about 30% on the scale from 0 to 100. Like in the city, Montana, 20, here is 30. What does it mean, life energy or orgone energy or chi? What this instrument measures, it actually measures our ability to receive harmful electromagnetic field. So higher the ability, our orgone or life energy is higher. Rather simple. People are on this scale from 0 to 100 from 55 to 100. For example, football players or tennis players, when they are in training, playing, they are about 90, 95, 98. All other people from 55, and it doesn't have anything to do with the age. It has to do with the way we live with our immunity and so on. So 30% is good, nothing special. Still, we don't have these healing properties. Then I measure magnetic field. Magnetic field on a scale with microtesla is the good field is from 25 to 65. If it is above 65, 70, 100, for example, 2 or 300, it means you are in close proximity of some very bad machines, like in a hospital, CT, stuff like that. They have about 300. And if you are real close to them, it's about 1,000. You go there, it's probably worse than potential disease that you have. But that's another story. Here we have 51 to 56 with an average of 54, which is rather good. I've seen places exactly in the middle of this scale, let's say about 43, 45, that would be ideal. 54 is still good. Ultrasound, if we can see regular distances showing the ultrasound at the same frequencies, then we could conclude that we have some type of the machine that generates this ultrasound. This is not the case. We do have presence of ultrasound, but it is irregular. Infrasound, similar thing. This is very, very deep sound. Sometimes on the places like megalithic sites, it's very busy, telling us that something is happening, either below them or inside. This is not the case. It's not busy. Most of the time there is no signal for infrasound. Now, two things that are really the most impressive. The first one is the orientation of the dolmen. If it was natural, Mother Nature does not make orientation exactly to the cardinal points. And cardinal points on this planet are east, west, north, and south. What we have here, we have exact north-south orientation. Now we are looking at the sun. It's just past noon. Sun is exactly to the south. and you see the orientation to the south. Now, this is not the orientation to some of our cosmic bodies and their important dates, like summer solstice or fall or spring equinox or winter solstice, like the case of the Sage Wall, which is oriented towards the sunrise and sunset during the winter solstice. Here we have simple orientation north-south, which in reality is not so simple, because you have to know where is your cosmic north, where is your exact south. So whoever placed those two big and smaller megaliths, that's the knowledge that they possessed. So if they know exact north and south, then they knew that our planet is spherical, it has its cosmic north. Maybe they knew even about the northern star. So it tells us that this place has some astronomical features, features of the astronomical observatory. And finally, about the megaliths themselves. Now, whether we had two blocks and somebody placed them separately, or they had them here and then they have them somehow broken, hard to say. But we can see nicely that they fit. If they move them, place them here. If they were able to move them and rotate for 90 degrees, probably it wouldn't be a big deal for them to place them separately, one after another. Now, when I did the measurement, this is what the results show. Let's call this block number one, to my left. So number one in European metric measurements, it's 130 centimeters. The height is 550 or 5.5 meters, and the width is 370 or 3.7 meters. In order to calculate the mass, what we do, we multiply the width, the height, and the thickness. 130 times 550 times 370, it's 26.455 cubic meters. Specific weight of the granite, about 3. So the mass of this block is 79 tons.
One block.
One block. The block number 2, with the similar measurements, 80 times 370 centimeters times 550, 16.3 cubic meter or 49 tons, almost 50 tons. Almost 80, almost 50. The one on the top, 220 times 140 times 250, 7.7 cubic meters or 23 tons. If we are to lift 23 tons on the top of those two, which are 5.5 meters or about 18-19 feet, you need to have lifting equipment. In this particular case, it should be crane. Forklifts, they don't have their forks, that can reach far enough. So our civilization of 21st century would use cranes. Around we can see remnants of cranes or any other lifting equipment. And we see many places with dolmens, with the blocks being moved. You would have a lot of pieces of the equipment if they would think the same way we think. The way we think is the following. You have 80 tons mass. The problem with 80 tons is the gravitational force. So what we do, we can't lift 80 tons. We can't lift 800 kilos. Some of us can lift maybe 80 kilos. So what we do, we apply our force, which is bigger than 80 kilos. Let's say our force is maybe 100 kilos. The same we do with our technology. In order to move 80-ton block, we invent crane, which is, let's say, 100-ton capacity. So our way, fighting the gravitational force, is the most primitive one. So we apply more power, a bigger tonnage capacity to move 80 tons. Is that the only way to move the weight, to move the mass. It's not. Our problem is they teach us that everything we do is the only way. Well, it is not. If we think about this, the problem we have is the gravitational force. If we could find a way to neutralize the gravitational force, we would be able to move those blocks with 2 fingers. So, how do you neutralize gravitational force? Today, we don't know. They don't teach us in schools. However, there are some communities that they do know. For example, Tibetans. What they would do when they were building their temples with 2 or 5 ton blocks, instead of dragging them all the way to the top of the mountain, or halfway, what they would do, they would start singing and playing their classical Tibetan instruments, producing very high frequency sounds which would neutralize gravitational force, and then the block would start going up, levitate. So, as a matter of fact, we need to discover the levitation frequency, and then we would be able to move blocks. Is it how they did it in the past? Maybe. Not on one, but in many places. Is there an electromagnetic frequency that can neutralize gravitational force? Probably yes. It seems that NASA has been doing experiments for decades now. So we just need to open our mind, and we will realize there are different ways to transport, to lift, to build. And once we do that, we will have better understanding of the original builders. They were thinkers. How they were getting their information from some energy, spiritual field, from Akasha, we don't know. But it seems that they were able to get those information in other ways that somebody else teaches them. Is it possible that in these vast areas of Montana and United States, mound builders, and before them, megalithic builders, were teaching native people about what they were doing, how they were doing, explaining them how to use and what to learn from those sites? It's very possible. So I can understand that Native Americans consider all those lands sacred because it is connected to their elders, to their, people who lived here thousands of years back. So, what we have here in Montana, what we've been showing the last couple of days, is extremely intriguing and extremely old. This passed the known civilization during the last civilization cycle, which is the time from 12,000 years onward. So at that time we had Mesolithic and Neolithic cultures, 12,000, 10,000, 8,000, 5,000 years back. They were not producing those megaliths. Even though we did have one megalithic windows happening from 5 to 8,000 years back, Stonehenge and some others. This is much older than that. It goes way back, maybe tens of thousands of years. What was happening during the time before time? Or during the time beyond time? We don't know. Who were those builders? Why they were doing this? These are not classical homes with windows and doors and roofs. They are not. People were not living here. What did they use this for? Astronomy can be partial, minor description and explanation. Did they focus some energies here? It's possible at the time when our mother planet was much stronger. Yes, it is possible. But the real purpose, the major purpose, I don't see that we're going to get to it in the years to come. Because our concept of energy, concept of living, concept of eating, concept of breathing, concept of communicating is so much different than theirs. Were they able to communicate by their thoughts, telepathy, and then execute the structures they wanted to build. It is very possible. Since they don't teach us in schools, our educational system is so poor. Our parents, they don't know. They are not the real teachers. How can we know? How can we teach the future generations? The only way is to combine physical with spiritual reality. Our 5 physical senses with 30 spiritual senses. And then we might be able to find out more about those structures. And it seems to me that the last big catastrophe, the end of the last ice age, 11,700 years back, produced such huge, powerful tsunamis, 1,000 feet, sometimes even 5,000 feet in height. And that force destroyed 99% of the civilizations that lived before. What we see here are just the remnants. But the remnants, like this one, which should tell us that yes, we can learn a lot from the ancients.
So that is exactly why you just explained it to me. And I had this epiphany as you were talking about the acoustics. Above us is the Tizer Acoustic Sphinx. The very first time I brought a group here, there were 3 women from the Haida tribe, Haida medicine women, very powerful women. And my friend and I were standing right here, and all of a sudden we heard this incredible tones come through the dome that almost knocked us over. So we go running up to the Tizer Sphinx and said, what just happened? Right? With the group, there was a man who's got this incredibly trained voice. He sounds like a didgeridoo. I've never heard such a low tone. And he'd been being trained by one of our musicians here to use his voice. He was also a yoga trainer, so he knew the breathing and the exercises. And he climbs down inside a side of the Tizer acoustic chamber, and he makes this sound. Everyone fell to the ground. We could not stand up. When we were within this channel, the people around us couldn't figure out what happened. We were right in the channel. They weren't. I've experienced that a second time. 2 times in my life I've experienced that. You fall to the ground, you cannot stand up, and your whole body's like in this ecstatic state. I've never done drugs, but this is what I imagine it'd be like. I mean, you're just in this ecstatic state, and you're kind of rolling around on the ground and just, I can't even describe this feeling. The second time I experienced it was on the Navajo, where the elder stood in an acoustic chamber, and he started toning, and he sounded one sound, and it echoed, and made a harmonic to the second tone, and when he heard the third harmonic to the third tone, same thing happened. We couldn't stand up. He hit those tones, and with his voice that echoed, so there's 3 different tones that almost echo, make a harmonic. Then we started finding these beautiful barcode doors, and when you apply sound to that, it makes the same tone. The next day, after this happened in the Navajo, this man was standing on a mound of crystals. And I walked up and I said, that was the original sound of the making. He said, you recognized it? Oh yeah. I've heard it in my dreams. I recognize the sound. It's how particles come into being. It's how implant matter becomes excrement matter. It's what forms the creation. The next day, I heard in my mind, come, follow me. And as I followed him, 7 other women just got up and followed him. Not a sound said. Into a place, into like an ancient well that looks very much like the Onks, where we recreated the world each year. Each year they recreate the world in a new way, with crystals, with these sounds. It's the sound of the making. And anti-gravity. You could not maintain your gravity. You could not remain upright when the sound was being played. So thank you for that.
Wonderful.
I've been so curious about what happened. I think you just explained it.